A single voicemail shattered my life that morning. I sat in my quiet kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence as sunlight sliced through the window and glinted off my untouched coffee. It was just another Tuesday until I heard Ethan's voice, trembling, broken. "Dad, I need to talk. It's about someone you don't know." My son, 23, hadn't been home in weeks, chasing dreams I couldn't follow. I'd told myself our distance was normal, growing pains, but deep down, I knew I'd lost him somewhere along the way. I just didn't know how much, or what it would cost to find him again. I wasn't the father I wanted to be. Work stole me away. Deadlines built walls between us. I missed Ethan's soccer games, his graduation, the day he learned to ride a bike, his lopsided grin lighting up the world. I swore I'd make it up to him. Someday. But someday never came. Now, that voicemail haunted me, his words hiding a secret I couldn't grasp, a name I'd never heard, a truth that could tear us apart forever. What was he running from? Why did his voice sound like goodbye? That morning, I had no idea I'd uncover a secret that would force me to face the man I'd become and the father I'd failed to be. A truth so heavy, it broke my heart. But maybe, just maybe, it could rebuild it too. This story is raw. It's messy. It hurts. But it's ours, Ethan's and mine, and I'm telling it for him, and for anyone fighting to hold on to the ones they love. If this story speaks to you, please like, comment, and subscribe. I need you with me as we unravel what happened next. Let's face the truth together. I stood frozen in my kitchen, Ethan's voicemail clawing at my heart like a living thing, sharp and relentless. His voice, cracked, raw, desperate, echoed through the quiet. "Dad, it's about Lila. I need you." Lila? Who the hell was Lila? The name landed like a stone, heavy and foreign. The refrigerator's hum grew louder, a mechanical pulse drowning my thoughts, while sunlight sliced through the window, glinting off my cold coffee like a cruel spotlight, mocking my stillness. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My son was unraveling, and I didn't even know why. I pressed play again, the message a knife, twisting deeper with every word. Ethan's fear wasn't just his. It was mine, a mirror of my failure. I'd been a father in name only, always chasing deadlines, leaving him to grow up in the gaps I'd carved between us. His voice shook with something bigger than fear, something I couldn't name. And it gutted me. I stared at the phone, willing it to explain, to tell me who Lila was. Why my 23-year-old son sounded like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. A photo on the fridge caught my eye. Ethan at 10, his lopsided grin beaming after his first soccer goal, his eyes so trusting they burned my throat. Back then, he'd believed in me, in us. Now, that boy was gone, replaced by a stranger whose voice trembled with secrets. I grabbed my phone and dialed him, my fingers clumsy. Voicemail. His phone was dead. Panic surged, sharp and cold, a blade slicing through my chest. Where was he? What had I missed? I scrolled through our texts. each one a fresh wound. Months of silence. My pathetic, "How's it going?" met with his curt, "Fine." When had we stopped talking? When had I let him slip so far away? The kitchen closed in, the air thick with my guilt. I'd missed his games, his graduation, the moments that make a father more than a name. I'd told myself I'd fix it someday, but someday was a lie. And now, Ethan was in trouble, real trouble. My keys sat on the counter, glinting like a challenge. I hesitated, dread pooling in my gut, heavy as lead. What if I found him and couldn't help? What if I was too late? The thought was unbearable, but doing nothing was worse. I snatched the keys, my hands shaking, and bolted for the car, the door slamming behind me like a gunshot. The morning air choked me, dense with secrets I wasn't ready to face. Ethan was out there, drowning in something I didn't understand, and I was the father who'd let it happen. I slid into the driver's seat, my heart hammering. The road ahead was a blur, but I drove toward his apartment, toward the unknown, terrified of what I'd find. Lila's name looped in my mind, a riddle I couldn't solve. Who was she? Why did Ethan need me now, after all the years I'd failed him? The weight of my mistakes pressed down, but I gripped the wheel tighter. I had to find him. I had to try. Because if I lost Ethan now, I'd lose myself too. I kicked open Ethan's apartment door, the silence inside louder than any scream. It hit me like a fist, the emptiness of a place that had forgotten him. Dirty dishes festered in the sink, crusted with days-old food. A half-empty beer sweated on the counter, its label peeling like skin. The air was stale, heavy with absence. My son was gone, and I stood in his doorway, a stranger in a life I'd never bothered to know. My chest ached, guilt gnawing at the edges of my heart. I stepped inside, my boots scuffing the worn floor. A crumpled note on the coffee table caught my eye. "Meet Lila at the bridge. Midnight." The words jolted me, Lila's name a spark in the dark. Who was she? Why the bridge? My heart lurched, the note trembling in my hand. I scanned the room, desperate for answers. His unmade bed smelled faintly of him. Sweat, hope, something I couldn't name. A jacket I'd bought him years ago lay crumpled in a corner, discarded like our bond. I touched it, the fabric rough under my fingers, and memory stung. Ethan at 16, wearing it proudly, before I let work steal me away. On his desk, a photo stopped me cold. Us at the Grand Canyon 5 years back. His smile was tight, forced, like he'd already known I'd fail him. I'd been too busy checking emails to notice. My throat tightened, shame burning hot. I rummaged Foster, my hands shaking, until a neighbor's voice broke the silence. She peeked through her door, eyes wary. "Ethan's been off," she said, her voice low, hanging with some shady guy, always whispering. The words landed like blows. Who was this guy? What had Ethan gotten into? I pocketed the note, its edges sharp against my palm. The bridge loomed in my mind, a dark promise I couldn't ignore. I moved to leave, but the apartment held me, its mess a map of Ethan's unraveling. The dishes, the beer, the jacket, they screamed of a life I'd missed. I'd been a father who showed up too late, always promising tomorrow. Now, tomorrow was here, and Ethan was gone. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of dread. I forced myself out, the door clicking shut behind me, sealing the ghost of my son inside. The drive to the bridge was a blur, the note burning a hole in my pocket. Lila. Midnight. The words looped, a riddle I couldn't crack. The neighbor's warning echoed, shady guy, whispering. Was he with Ethan now? Was Lila the key or the trap? I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. The city blurred past, its lights too bright, too cruel. I'd failed Ethan for years, but I wouldn't fail him now. Not when he needed me. Not when his voicemail still echoed, raw and broken, begging for a father I hadn't been. I parked near the bridge, the river below, a black scar under the stars. The note felt alive in my hand, a tether to Ethan, or to whatever he was running from. I stepped out, the night air cold against my skin, and walked toward the bridge, my heart a heavy stone. I was chasing a ghost, and it was tearing me apart, but I'd keep chasing until I found him, or until I lost myself trying. The bridge loomed under moonlight, its steel skeleton stark against the night. The river below was a black void, swallowing sound, swallowing hope. I clutched Lila's note, my breath shallow, praying Ethan would step out of the shadows. The wind bit my skin, sharp and personal, whispering my failures like a curse I couldn't shake. I was alone, a father who'd lost his son long before tonight, standing on a bridge that felt like the edge of the world. A car's headlights sliced through the dark, blinding me. My heart leapt. Ethan? But the car slowed, then sped off, taillights fading like a cruel tease. Hope splintered, leaving jagged edges in my chest. I sank against the railing, the note crumpling in my fist. A memory clawed its way up. Ethan at 12, blowing out birthday candles alone in our kitchen, his eyes dim because I'd chosen a deadline over him. That was the day his smiles stopped reaching me, the day I started losing him. I hadn't seen it then, too wrapped in my own life. Now, it was all I could see. Footsteps shuffled nearby, pulling me back. A homeless man, bundled in rags, muttered as he passed. "Kids and bad deals," he said, his voice gravelly, eyes darting. I grabbed his arm, desperate. "What kids? What deals?" He shook me off, mumbling, and vanished into the dark. His words lingered, a warning I couldn't decode. My phone buzzed, the sound jarring in the silence. A text from an unknown number. "He's not yours anymore. Stop." The words were a punch, stealing my breath. Who sent it? What did they know? I stood there, the note a weight in my hand, the text a blade in my mind. The bridge stretched empty, mocking my vigil. I waited, hours bleeding into dawn, the sky bruising purple. Ethan didn't come. The note was all I had, its words, Lila, midnight, burning like a brand. My failures piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. I'd missed his games, his dreams, his pain. Now, he was gone, and someone out there didn't want me to find him. How do you reach a son who's already gone? What did I miss that broke us? The questions tore at me, raw and relentless. I needed answers, but the bridge offered none, just cold steel and colder truths. I was terrified those truths would destroy me, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when Ethan's voice still echoed, begging for a father I hadn't been. I turned back to my car, the note trembling in my hand, the text's warning looping in my head. The city woke around me, indifferent to my dread. I drove home, the bridge shrinking in my rear view, but its shadow clung to me. Ethan was out there, tangled in something dark, something tied to Lila and that text. I'd failed him for years, but I wouldn't fail him now. I'd find him, no matter what it cost. The road blurred, my eyes stinging, but I kept driving, chasing a son I barely knew. A son I'd let slip away. The weight of that truth was crushing, but it was mine to carry, and I'd carry it until I brought him home. Lila's name burned in my mind as I drove home, a spark I couldn't douse. That text, "He's not yours anymore," was a blade, twisting with every mile. I was betraying Ethan by digging into his life, rifling through the pieces he'd kept hidden, but I couldn't stop. I needed to know who Lila was, what she meant to him, why his voice had cracked with her name. The city blurred past, its lights too harsh, my guilt heavier than the dawn. I called Jake, Ethan's best friend, my voice tight with desperation. He answered, hesitant, his words clipped. "Lila? Ask Marcus," he mumbled, then hung up, his fear palpable even through the phone. Marcus. Another name, another shadow. Who were these people stealing my son? I pulled over at Ethan's favorite diner, the neon sign flickering like my hope. Inside, the air smelled of grease and coffee. A waitress, her name tag reading Tina, recognized Ethan's photo. "Yeah, he was here last week," she said, wiping the counter. "Arguing with some guy, Marcus maybe," looked intense. Back at Ethan's apartment, I tore through his things, my hands shaking. In his jacket pocket, I found a crumpled receipt from the diner, Marcus's number scrawled on it next to Lila's plan. The words hit like a shockwave. What plan? Why Lila? I dialed Marcus, my heart hammering. "He's fine," he snapped, his voice cold as ice. "Leave him be." The line went dead, his dismissal a slap. I stood in Ethan's empty room, the silence screaming my failure. I'd never asked about his friends, his life. Now, it was all I had. Under his bed, I found a journal, its cover worn, pages dog-eared. I hesitated, guilt gnawing at me. This was Ethan's heart, laid bare. But I opened it. The last entry gutted me. "Lila's gone. Marcus knows why." My hands trembled, the words blurring. Gone? Dead? Missing? Marcus was the key, but he was a lock I couldn't break. The journal was a map of Ethan's pain, each page a confession I'd never earned. He'd written about Lila, about love, about fear. I'd missed it all, too busy building walls with my absence. I sank to the floor, the journal heavy in my lap. Marcus's number stared up from the receipt, a challenge. Lila's name echoed, a riddle tying Ethan to something dark. The text from the bridge, "He's not yours anymore," felt like a warning from someone who knew too much. Was it Marcus? Someone else? My son was slipping away, tangled in secrets I couldn't unravel. I'd failed him for years, letting work steal our time, our trust. Now, I was chasing shadows, each one darker than the last. I stood, the journal tucked under my arm, Marcus's number burning in my pocket. The city outside was waking, indifferent to my dread. I'd find Marcus, make him talk, no matter what it took. Ethan was out there, drowning in Lila's absence, in whatever plan had broken him. I was his father, and I'd been absent too long. The weight of that truth was crushing, but I'd carry it to find him. I stepped into the morning, my heart a bruised thing, ready to face the man who knew my son's secrets. Marcus waited in a dive bar on the city's edge, all sharp edges and fake smiles, like a predator playing tame. The air reeked of stale beer and cigarette smoke, secrets festering in the dim light. He leaned against the bar, his eyes cutting through me before I even spoke. "You're Ethan's dad," he said, his voice smooth, mocking. He knew me, knew my failures, and it made my skin crawl. I was out of my depth, a father grasping at shadows to save a son I'd already lost. I sat across from him, the table sticky under my hands. "Where's Ethan?" I demanded, my voice rougher than I meant. Marcus smirked, his fingers twitching on his glass. "He's in over his head," he said, the words casual but heavy. "You can't fix this, Dad." The words stung, a jab at my absence. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Ethan owes people, dangerous people, a debt you don't pay with apologies." My heart sank, the bar's hum fading. A debt? What had Ethan done? A memory slammed into me. Ethan, last year, asking for cash, his eyes avoiding mine. "It's for tuition," he'd said. I'd wired the money, too distracted to question. Had I funded this mess? My stomach churned, guilt a bitter taste. "What debt?" I pressed, my voice rising. Marcus shrugged, his nonchalance ablaze. "Ask him yourself," he said, sliding a burner phone across the table. "Wait for his call. Don't mess this up." The phone was cold, heavy, like I was holding Ethan's life. I stared at it, my hands trembling. Marcus watched, his smile never reaching his eyes. "You don't know your kid, do you?" he said, soft but cruel. The truth landed like a punch. I didn't. I'd missed his life, his pain, his secrets. The bar closed in, its walls too tight, the air too thick. I stood, the phone clutched tight, and walked out. Marcus's laughter trailing me like a ghost. The night was cold, the city's lights mocking my helplessness. I drove home, the burner phone on the passenger seat, a ticking bomb. Ethan was trapped, tied to dangerous people, to Lila, to Marcus. I'd failed him, not just now, but for years, missing his games, his dreams, his cries for help. The journal's words, "Lila's gone, Marcus knows why," burned in my mind. Was she dead? Was Ethan running from her? From the debt? From himself? I didn't know, and that ignorance was my punishment. What kind of father misses his son's fall? Can I pull him back from this? The questions clawed at me, raw and relentless. I parked outside my house, the phone heavy in my hand. I'd wait for Ethan's call, but waiting felt like surrender. Marcus's words, "dangerous people, a debt," echoed, a warning I couldn't ignore. I was chasing a son I barely knew, a son I'd let slip away. The weight of my failures was crushing, but I'd carry it to save him. I stepped inside, the silence of my home a mirror of Ethan's apartment, empty and accusing. I sat, the phone in my lap, and waited, my heart a bruised thing, praying for a chance to make this right. The burner phone shrieked at midnight, shattering the silence of my living room. Ethan's voice came through, thin and shaking like a thread about to snap. "Dad, I'm sorry. I screwed up bad." Relief flooded me, sharp and fleeting, then drowned in dread. He was alive, but his fear was a living thing. wrapping around my heart. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white, desperate to hold him through the line, to pull him back from whatever edge he was teetering on. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice cracking. He didn't answer, just breathed, ragged and uneven. "I'm okay for now," he said, the lie so fragile it hurt. A man's voice cut through the background, sharp, barking orders. My blood froze. "Who was with him?" Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper, urgent. "Marcus is lying to you, Dad. Don't trust him." The words were a jolt, Marcus's fake smile flashing in my mind. What had he hidden? What was Ethan running from? "Come home," I begged, my voice raw. Ethan laughed, a sound so bitter it cut me open. "You don't even know who I am anymore." The truth of it was a blade, slicing through years of my absence. He was right. I'd missed his life, his pain, his secrets. The call was slipping away, and I was losing him again. "Ethan, please," I said, but the line went dead, the silence louder than any scream. I redialed, frantic, but it was disconnected, a void where my son had been. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hands, trembling like I'd run a marathon. Ethan's words, "You don't know me," were a wound I couldn't close. I drove to the bridge, the only place I knew to look, the city's lights blurring through my tears. The bridge was empty, its steel cold under my hands. The river below a black mirror reflecting my failure. I stood where I'd waited before, Lila's note still in my pocket, its words mocking me. Ethan was out there, scared, alone, and I was chasing ghosts. The night pressed in, heavy with my guilt. I'd failed Ethan for years, missing his games, his dreams, his cries for help. Now, he was tangled in something dark. Lila, Marcus, that barking voice on the phone. I didn't know who he was anymore, but I knew he was my son, and I'd fight for him. The bridge offered no answers, just the echo of his bitter laugh, the weight of his fear. I drove home, the road a blur, my heart a bruised thing. Back in my living room, I stared at the burner phone, willing it to ring again. Marcus's lies, Ethan's warning, Lila's absence. They were pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. I was a father who'd shown up too late, but I wouldn't stop now. Ethan was slipping away, but I'd chase him through every shadow, every secret, until I found him. The silence of my house was a mirror of my failure, but I'd carry that weight to save him. I sat, the phone in my lap, and waited, praying for another chance, knowing time was running out. I stormed into Ethan's apartment, a man possessed, tearing into his life like I could claw him back from the dark. The silence was suffocating, the air thick with his absence. I found his journal under the bed, its cover worn, pages heavy with secrets I hadn't earned. I hesitated, guilt gnawing at me. This was Ethan's heart, laid bare. But I opened it, each word a knife to my soul. His handwriting, once so familiar, was a stranger's now, mapping a life I'd never seen, a son I'd lost. An entry from last year stopped me cold. Dad doesn't see me. Lila did. Marcus promised a way out. Lila's name again, a thread tying him to something broken. Marcus's lies echoed from Ethan's midnight call, his warning sharp in my mind. Another page mentioned a deal with someone named Victor, something dirty to save Lila. My blood froze, the journal trembling in my hands. Victor. A new name. A new shadow. What had Ethan done? What had I missed? A photo slipped from the pages, fluttering to the floor. Ethan and a girl laughing in a park, her eyes bright, haunting. Lila. I knew it was her, the girl who'd broken my son's voice. My chest ached, her smile a ghost I couldn't grasp. I called Jake, Ethan's friend, my voice shaking. He answered, reluctant, his words heavy. Ethan ran drugs for Victor, he said, low and fast, to pay a debt. Lila was caught in it. She's gone. Dead. The word hung unspoken, a weight crushing my heart. I sank to the floor, the journal open in my lap, Lila's photo staring up. Ethan had loved her, and now she was gone. The journal was a map of his pain, pages of guilt, love, fear. He'd written about me, too, the father who was never there, who didn't see his son falling. I'd missed his games, his dreams, his cries for help. Now, he was drowning in Lila's loss, in Victor's world, in secrets I couldn't unravel. My failure was a living thing, choking me. Jake's words, drugs, debt, Lila, spun in my mind, a storm I couldn't outrun. Victor was the key, a man who'd turned my son into someone I didn't know. I needed to find him, to face the monster who'd trapped Ethan. But fear gnawed at me. What would I learn? What had Ethan become? The journal's last line, Lila's gone, was a wound, raw and bleeding. I'd failed Ethan for years, letting work steal our time, our trust. Now, I was chasing his pain, each step darker than the last. I stood, the journal tucked under my arm, Lila's photo in my pocket. The apartment was a tomb holding Ethan's ghost. I'd find Victor, make him talk, no matter the cost. Ethan was out there, carrying a grief I couldn't imagine, a debt I couldn't pay. I was his father, and I'd been absent too long. The weight of my mistakes was crushing, but I'd carry it to save him. I stepped into the night, the city's lights cold and distant, my heart a bruised thing, ready to face the man who'd stolen my son. Victor's warehouse reeked of rust and menace, its shadows swallowing the light. The air was thick, pressing against my skin as I faced him, a giant of a man, eyes cold as steel, his smirk a blade carving my resolve. Your boy chose this life, he said, his voice low, mocking. I wanted to break him, to shatter that smirk, but I was a father out of his depth, grasping at a son I'd lost to this monster's world. He leaned against a crate, arms crossed, sizing me up. Ethan owes me 50 grand, he said, casual, like it was nothing. A deal went south. My heart sank, the number a weight I couldn't lift. 50 grand. How had Ethan fallen so far? Victor gestured to a laptop, a video flickering to life. There was Ethan, bruised, hauling crates in a dark alley, his eyes hollow. My stomach twisted, bile rising. My son, my boy, reduced to this. I'd failed him, let him slip into this nightmare. I'll pay it, I said, my voice shaking. Victor laughed, a sound that chilled me. It's not money he owes, it's blood. The words were a punch, stealing my breath. Blood? What had Ethan done? Victor's eyes narrowed, his smirk fading. Lila, he said, the name a warning. His love for my sister broke everything. Lila was his sister? The revelation hit like a shockwave, tying Ethan's guilt to this man's rage. My mind reeled. Lila's photo burning in my pocket. I stepped closer, desperate. Where is he? Victor shrugged, his nonchalance ablaze. Find him before I do, he said, his voice a quiet threat. The warning hung heavy, a noose tightening around my heart. I turned to leave, the warehouse's shadows clawing at me, Victor's laughter echoing behind. The video of Ethan played in my mind, his bruised face a mirror of my failure. I'd missed his life, his pain, his secrets. Now, he was running from a debt I couldn't pay, from a man who wanted blood. Outside, the night was cold, the city's lights mocking my helplessness. Lila was Victor's sister, and Ethan's love for her had broken him. The journal's words, "Lila's gone," took on new weight. Was her death the debt? The blood Victor meant? I didn't know, and that ignorance was my punishment. I'd failed Ethan for years, letting work steal our time, our trust. Now, he was trapped in Victor's world, a world I'd let him fall into. I drove, the warehouse fading in my rear view, but its menace clung to me. Ethan was out there, carrying Lila's loss, Victor's rage, a debt I couldn't fathom. I needed to find him, to save him from this monster, from himself. The weight of my failures was crushing, but I'd carry it to bring him home. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, the road blurring through my tears. Ethan was my son, and I'd been absent too long. I'd face Victor again if I had to, but first, I'd find Ethan, no matter what it cost. The city stretched ahead, dark and unforgiving. My heart a bruised thing, beating for a chance to make this right. Lila's house was a ruin, crumbling at the city's edge like my hope. The porch sagged, paint peeling like old skin. Her mother opened the door, eyes hollow, her face a map of grief. Lila's dead, she said, flat, final. The words tilted my world, stealing my breath. Ethan was there. My heart cracked. The journal's words, Lila's gone, now a truth I couldn't escape. My son had loved her, lost her, and I hadn't even known she existed. She led me to Lila's room, a shrine frozen in time. Photos lined the walls, Lila and Ethan laughing, clinging to each other. His handwriting was everywhere. Love notes tucked into books, scrawled on napkins. My chest ached, seeing the boy I'd missed, the one who'd loved so fiercely. He dragged her into Victor's mess, her mother spat, her voice raw with blame. Victor's sister. The connection burned, tying Ethan's guilt to the monster I'd faced. I wanted to defend him, but my silence was my own accusation. I found a letter on Lila's desk, Ethan's writing shaky. "I'll fix this, I promise." Dated the day she died. My hands trembled, the paper thin as my hope. What had he tried to fix? Her mother watched, her eyes hard. "Overdose," she said. Ethan was with her. He ran. A neighbor's story filled the gaps. Ethan fleeing that night, sobbing, dirt on his hands like he'd buried something. The image gutted me, my son breaking under a weight I couldn't imagine. I stood in Lila's room, surrounded by her ghost, Ethan's love, their tragedy, the journal, the letter, the photos. They were a map of his pain, a pain I'd failed to see. I'd missed his life, his dreams, his heart. Now, he was carrying Lila's death, blaming himself for a loss he couldn't stop. Victor's words, "Blood he owes," echoed, dark and final. Was this the debt? Lila's life? My failure was a living thing, choking me with every breath. I thanked her mother, my voice hollow, and stepped outside. The house loomed behind me, a tomb for Lila, for Ethan's hope. I needed to find him, to carry his guilt with him, to tell him he wasn't alone. But time was slipping. Victor's threat, find him before I do. A noose tightening. Ethan was out there, drowning in grief, in secrets I was only beginning to unravel. I'd failed him for years, letting work steal our time, our trust. Now, I was chasing his pain, each step heavier than the last. I drove, Lila's letter in my pocket, Ethan's face in my mind, bruised, broken, running from her death. The city blurred, its lights cold, indifferent. I'd find him, no matter what it took. He was my son, and I'd been absent too long. The weight of Lila's death was his, but I'd make it mine too. I'd face Victor, face Ethan's guilt, face my own failures. The road stretched ahead, dark and unforgiving. My heart a bruised thing, beating for a chance to save him. I'd bring him home, or I'd break trying, because a father doesn't stop. Not when his son's still out there, carrying a pain too big for one soul. I found Ethan on the bridge at dawn, his silhouette fragile against the pink sky, a ghost of the boy I'd raised. He was thinner, haunted, eyes hollow from a pain I hadn't seen until too late. The river below murmured, soft but relentless, like the guilt we both carried. I stepped closer, my heart hammering, unsure if I was his father or his enemy. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't lose him again. Not now. Not after everything. He flinched as I approached, his voice a whisper, raw and broken. I couldn't save her, Dad. Lila. Her name hung between us, heavy with his grief. He confessed, the words spilling like blood. Lila overdosed in his arms, her life slipping away as he begged her to stay. He'd run, not from her, but from himself, from the guilt that consumed him. My chest ached, seeing my son so small, so shattered. I wanted to hold him, to take his pain, but I stood still, letting him speak. The debt to Victor was for Lila, he said. A desperate plan to buy her freedom from her brother's world. It failed, costing him everything. Victor's rage, Lila's life, Ethan's soul. I listened, my heart breaking for the boy who'd loved so fiercely, who'd tried to save her alone. I'd failed him, missing his life, his dreams, his cries for help. I'm sorry, I said, my voice cracking, for missing you, for letting you carry this alone. Tears fell, his and mine, mingling in the dawn light. He looked at me, eyes searching, finding something, maybe trust, maybe hope. We sat on the bank, the river's murmur a quiet witness. I told him we'd face Victor together, end the debt, the threat, the nightmare. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a start. Fragile, but real. Ethan nodded, his hand trembling in mine, a spark of the boy who'd trusted me once. I'd been absent too long, but I was here now, and I'd fight for him, for us. Our story was raw, broken, but it was ours. Lila's ghost, Ethan's guilt, my failures. They were threads in a tapestry we'd weave together, one painful truth at a time. Victor's threat still loomed, a shadow we couldn't outrun, but we'd face it as a family. I'd lost Ethan once, for years, to my absence, to his pain. I wouldn't lose him again. The dawn stretched on, soft and hopeful, a promise we'd keep fighting, keep rebuilding. If this story hits you, it's because it's real. Love, loss, the fight to hold on. Please like, comment, share your own story below. Have you ever fought to save someone you love? I need to know I'm not alone. Subscribe, join us on this journey. Let's face the truth together, because Ethan and we're just starting to heal, and we need you with us. The bridge stood silent, the city waking around us. But for the first time, I felt hope, fragile but fierce, cutting through the weight of our pain. We'd walk away together, father and son, carrying our scars, our truths, into a dawn that was ours to claim.